And hello, everyone. It's PL Stewart here, author of The Drunk Kingdom Saga, back on my channel, The Drunk Kingdom Saga 7847. The third and final, but certainly, certainly it's almost like they've all been amazing and, saving the best for last, perhaps. We have none other than the author of Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory, based on the Nebula nominated Tower of Mud and Straw. A phenomenal author, an amazing person who I've now had the privilege of meeting in person at the recent Worldcon, but we'll talk about that in Glasgow, Scotland. YAROSLAV BARSUKOV, welcome, sir. How are you today?
Thank you so much, sir. It's great to be here. It's absolutely amazing to be here, and I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting you at the Worldcon, and this is it's just great to be here. You're an amazing author, a beautiful writer, and I'm honored.
Well, thanks so much. The feeling is very mutual. Thank you so much for coming. I, again, had the privilege of meeting you in Scotland, and you were so kind and thoughtful as to give me a copy of your book and some other things that I'm going to do a special little post. I did one before on socials about what else you gave me, and again, so kind and generous. But this book, Yaroslav, Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory, made my list of top books of the year. As those of you who weren't aware, can look on the post on Before We Go blog that lists my top indie self-pub and trad small press books that I read in 2024. This book definitely made the list. It was absolutely incredible. I think where I'd like to start the conversation, that's okay, is that I mentioned in my review of this book that I had your original novella, Tower of Mud and Straw, on my TBR for so long. I was like, and I'm one of those people, I'm a serial completionist. If I say I'm going to read it, I'm going to read it. However, I may not get to it for months or even years. However, it was coming up. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, I don't see it anymore on Amazon. And I remember speaking to you or either posting on social or something saying, no, it's going to be rewritten. It's going to be part of a larger work. I said, okay, so that's fine. And of course, when I got to see you in Glasgow, again, you were kind enough to give me the book itself. And when I read it, wow, I was absolutely blown away. It was phenomenal. The prose, people who know me and are a fan of my channel, who know me as an author and as a reader especially, I'm what I would consider myself. Actually, I was talking about this on the last live. A bit of a prose snob, as my friend Jason Chen said he was on the last live. Prose is my vehicle. It's my entry point into any work. And when a writer has phenomenal prose, there's 60 to 7% on the way to hooking me into that book. And your prose is absolutely phenomenal. It's lyrical, it's poetic, but it's certainly not overdone. It's not purple. It just has that right touch to just grab you, to have those lines that you keep rereading because they were so beautiful and that you want to go back to. And that as a writer, you'll often find yourself saying, wow, I wish I could write like that. And that is
what I'm thinking when I'm reading you, Theo.
I'm very honored, my friend. But seriously, your prose is outstanding. But the story itself, and this is where I have to say, I am only starting now to read books, and I've books like yours challenge me in all the right ways, because I'm now starting to read books that are not necessarily written in a more linear fashion. As I said in my review, felt more dreamscapey, very ethereal. It was you're bending reality in a lot of ways, and but all in the good way. At times I was confounded, a bit confused. But then when I started to grasp things and really, and I had to do some rereading, it was just phenomenal. It was just, I can't say enough about this book. And I guess I wanna ask you, I want to go a bit backwards now. So the inception, the evolution of this novel, this full novel, came from a novella that was nominated for a Nebula. And for those of you who don't know, a Nebula is one of the most prestigious writing awards out there. So, first, can you tell us a bit about the experience of, in terms of your writing journey, how did you write this novella that ended up getting nominated for a Nebula? And then why did you decide, you know what, I'm going to turn this into this full like novel
Yeah.
when the original got nominated for Nebula? How did that all come together?
It was an amazing journey. First of all, Peel, thank you so much for your kind words, and I can only, reflect and mirror the sentiment because this is what I'm thinking when I'm reading you. You know, and regarding the novella, I the novella was published by Metaphorosis, and Metaphorosis was so it was serialized in a magazine. Metaphorosis has closed this year, and it was a beautiful magazine where which had a focus on the prose actually. So the prose, beautiful prose, was a very big point, was a big focus there, and the editor was B. Morris Allen. He's also a beautiful writer. At one point, he because I was supporting Metaphors on Patreon, and at one point he made a post saying that he wanted to rejuvenate the genre of serialized novella. So he wanted to follow in the footsteps of Zelazny, and we're both great Zelazny fans, he and I. And I was like, "Hey, this is interesting. This is something I would love to do because the idea of serializing work when it's not in two installments but in three, four installments, it's almost like running a TV series. You feel like every month a new episode comes out, and people will get to read it, and so on. So it's a fascinating thought. And he didn't even think of me at first. So he had some writers he was working with, had been working with, who wrote longer works, and he approached them. And I just wrote him an email because we've been communicating by that point a lot, and I've been learning a lot from him because I've been learning a lot from him in the sense that uh, when I wrote in Russian, I never wrote professionally in Russian, but I wrote some stories. I wrote some slightly longer works, and I always enjoyed vivid imagery, lush prose, vivid imagery. It was always something I really enjoyed. But when I started writing professionally in English, uh, the advice that I got in the very beginning was you should write in a more dry style. Like you should the style should be a bit drier, more journalistic. This is good. This is the what you should aspire towards. And this is what I did, and it kind of never felt right to me. And then at some point, this editor, Morris Allen, said, "Yeah, Ray, it's all good. It's all good. Like you have a good grasp of the story, and you know how to start a story. You know how to end a story, but the prose is a little bit workmanlike, a little bit too dry. Maybe come on, just put a metaphor or two in it." And I was like, "Man, come on! This is what I've been doing my whole life. I was told I shouldn't do this anymore. And this is how he gave me back my voice. So I'm indebted to him for giving me back my voice in English. So I wrote to him and I said, Maurice, would you want perhaps to try a novella with me? Because I'm very fascinated by this concept of serialized thing. And he said, yeah, let's try it. Just shoot me a summary. I'm not sure, but shoot me a summary. I might be all booked for the next year. I shot him a summary, and he was like, okay, let's do it. So we did it, and it was great in a sense that again, the anticipation every month that a new installment will come out in the magazine, but at the same time there were very, very rigorous requirements as to the size. So it had to be no longer the 40,000 words. It had to be no more than 4 installments, and every installment had to be no longer than 10K words. And I remember at one point sitting down with a notebook. I had a yellow paper notebook, and I just sketched one of the parts, one of the installments, the third installment, I think. in terms of how much words can I spare for every scene. So in order to fit into this uh, uh, into this Procrustean bed of 10K words per installment. So a lot of scenes were cut. A lot of scenes were outlined but never written, and then the editor cut some of them for size too. And this was all put back into the novel version. So it's kind of like a director's cut where you leave a ton of stuff on the cutting room floor and then you just put it back in. Oh, it should be there. It should be there. And some of the scenes, I think, really they improve the flow massively. Like in the novella, there is in the novel there is a scene where they follow the characters follow Patrick, who is a military counselor, to Poltava, to a Duman village. And in the novel, there's a long chase, and then they go to some old shrine, and they talk about Duman customs and how Duma is an atheist society and so on. But in the novella, it just cuts. They just take the horses, and it just cuts to the village. So I think the flow is much better in the novel. Um, and another big addition was I've always envisioned Brielle, the engineer of the tower, as the second main character. And her story is actually the story of my grandmother. It's the story of my grandmother. So my grandmother grew up in Siberia. I mean, not completely. She never went to a parallel world or anything, but um, she grew up in Siberia in a family of 10. And she's always been the smartest, the brightest, and the same thing that happens in the novel happened to her. So people from the university came to her school, they did the test, she scored the highest marks, and then she came back to her father and said, "Hey, Dad, I got those amazing marks. Can I go study?" He said, "Lipachka, look, we have 8 kids. You're the eldest, so you will stay and help us with the kids, and your brothers and sisters will go study." That was insane. Absolutely, like the whole life defined by this one statement. And then again, the same thing happened as in the novel. A friend of the family came by for a drink, and he said, "Oh, why did your Lipachka had scored the highest on the test? We all know you'll never send a study." He was like, "Why not?" "Well, because you have a big family." And after that, he came to my grandmother. My great grandfather came to my grandmother and said, "You will go study." So this is the story of real story of my grandmother's, and I couldn't put Brielle as a second main character into the novella because the novella would have felt very incomplete because her story comes to the close, comes to fruition in the second part of the novel. So you can't just cut it in the middle. And because of that, a lot of Brielle's backstory was cut, a lot of Brielle's feelings and her point of view of all those events was cut, and she was a flatter character in the novella because of that. So I had the possibility to put it all back in. But the truth is, I didn't want to write the novel at first. What I wanted to do a second novella. I had it all outlined in the beginning. I wanted to do a second novella with Maurice, but I don't think that Maurice enjoyed book publishing much. He did enjoy working with people on their stories. He did enjoy the editing process. Like I said, he's a beautiful writer. But what he didn't enjoy was the marketing and publicity aspect of it. So it was really difficult for him. And I think this was, I mean, I can only guess, but I think this was the main reason why he didn't pursue book publishing as such. He published my book. He published another novella, which came after me. And he also published a number of short story collections, great short story collections with wonderful ideas, like when one writer writes a story and another writer writes a story that kind of reflects on the first story, and so on. So different configurations, different ideas, fascinating books. But like I said, he never really went fully into book publishing, and he closed the magazine this year, unfortunately. And this feels I talked to so many people since then, and they were all reflecting the same sentiment, saying that's such a loss. It was such a beautiful part of the publishing industry. It's sad to see it gone. And I mean, this time when I was writing the novella, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. You'll have to stop me. Yeah, you have to stop me at some point. But when I was writing the novella, and when um, it wasn't a solitary experience. It wasn't such a solitary experience as writing a novel is, because we had those installments. So I would write an installment and I would submit it to Maurice. He would edit it. He would come back to me with feedback and I would fix it. So it was more like working with him as an editor on this. And because we were both Zelazny fans, for me it was like carrying the mantle, of Zelazny, and just the whole world was full of opportunities back then, and I felt like, okay, this is going to be great. It was an amazing feeling, absolutely magical. Like this, even though it was COVID time, the first part of 2020, it was COVID time. People were suffering, and we were locked up. But still, it was magical because of this experience with the novella. But when he closed his book publishing outfit, I said, "What the hell? Instead of publishing the second novella, let's expand it into the novel. Put all the cut stuff back in. We won't have any size requirements anymore. Just let's do the full novel."
Wow, that's an incredible story. And of course, we're so grateful for the full novel. We get the benefit. But so explain, please, then. I mean, you've given us, the genesis, the inception of Tower of Mud and Straw. So in all of this, clearly your brilliance was recognized because somehow, in all of this, there was enough attention and focus on your novella for it to get nominated for a Nebula. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, I know you're a humble guy, but that's not, there's a tiny percentage of the writing world that gets nominated for certain awards. Those awards that are considered the upper stratosphere, like the Locust and Nebula, etc. So you got nominated for a Nebula, my friend. So
I don't know how it happened. I have
that's a
no
huge
idea.
deal. So yeah, but what can you tell us about it? How did that happen? And how did it happen? How did it make you feel? What effect did it have on your writing career? And what, now that some time has passed since then, what direction has it taken your writing career and your writing, and what you're doing as an author?
Yeah, I wouldn't know how this really happened. I mean, I've been a part of SEFWA, of the organization, a member of SEFWA, because nebulas are kind of like Oscars in comparison to Hugos. Hugos are more of a popularity award, so you have to have a lot of fans to even get shortlisted, even get to longlisted for a Hugo. You have to have an army of fans. And nebulas are more in the sense of publishing professionals, other writers, editors, publishers voting for the books. So it's much closer to the Oscar model, but still it's the second most important award after the Hugo, because I don't know why, but uh, for me it's the most important one, honestly, because I really value the opinion of my peers, and I really value the opinion. I, a lot of people, there's a reading list, Nebula reading list, which lists all the works which people recommend for reading for the awards every year, and so many people whom I personally respect a lot upvoted the novella. That was an absolutely humbling experience, but also a very happy experience, because you really feel, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm on the right path. This is it. Same way I felt when I got on your list, Theo. By the way, on the absolutely the same feeling.
My list is nothing like the prestige of being nominated for Nebula. But thank you. You're very kind.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And how this happened, I mean, I talked about it on the Cepha forums a bit, and a lot of people whom I knew asked about, can you shoot us an EPUB? And this just happened by itself, I guess. Just happened by itself. But I'm so grateful for it. And what happens is when you get nominated, when you get shortlisted, you receive a call from someone in the organization. Because when you're a member, you have all your details there and the phone number, social security number, whatever. Not the social security number, but the phone number for sure. So they know it, and they call you and they say, are you the sole author of this work, and so on. And I remember when I got this phone call, when I put the phone down, I just cried. I just cried, man. It was such uh, absolutely indescribable feeling. I just cried for 5 minutes or so because I was so damn happy. And then you kind of go to sleep and you think, okay, is this all a dream? Will I wake up to the same reality? Oh, that was cool. And surely Nebula helped me a lot. One thing that where it helped me a lot, I had much less of a hard time finding an agent than I would assume I would have had if I didn't have it, if I hadn't had it. So this was one thing. Another thing, things like big idea essay on John Scalzi's website too. So John was very generous, gave me a spot
Ooh,
for the
that's a
Novell.
big that's a big author.
Yeah, Scalzi. John is absolutely amazing. He's absolutely amazing. He's an amazing guy and a great author. Really, uh, he's an inspiration. And he gave me a spot on his blog for the novella, and then again for the novel. So I'm very grateful to him. Very generous of him. So it helped in a lot of ways. And of course, whenever you go advertise something or market something, you can always mention, okay, this is based on a Nebula nominated novella, or I'm a Nebula nominated author. Though I always feel uneasy, a little bit because I don't have the imposter syndrome as such anymore, but I still feel like I'm an apprentice.
I totally get it, and you definitely you know again, you're such a fabulous writer, but I can understand. Of course, I'm never going to be nominated for Nebula anywhere
No, you
close.
will.
But at
Come
the
on,
same
man.
at the same time, no, and I'm fine with that. But I mean, I think when I think about authors such as yourself, I still consider you horribly underrated, right?
Thank you.
Even with the Nebula nomination, after reading your book, I can say I still consider you horribly underrated. You should have thousands and thousands and thousands of ratings on Goodreads and Amazon and etc. And I'm not saying you
Not about that.
haven't saying you haven't enjoyed a lot of success, because obviously you have, but when you talk about, and I haven't read Zelazny, or haven't read Roger Zelazny, but I often hear people comparing you to him,
Thank you.
and I feel that, yeah, like it's just so stunning sometimes when you have a writer such as yourself that is still so under the radar in so many ways, but yet has a Nebula nomination. That it's almost
Yeah.
almost a contradiction, this dichotomy. But at the same time, I am so happy for you with that success, and that story just warmed my heart. The way you
Thank you.
said you felt about getting the Nebula nomination. The fact, and I'm so happy to hear it has had a positive impact
Hmm?
on your career for sure. So
Definitely. Definitely.
you get nominated for the Nebula. You decide, after the direction that the magazine was taking, etc., that you decide to write this wonderful novel, expanded, bring some of these character stories, a wonderful, just again warm my heart to hear the story of your grandmother. That was Brielle's story, and she was one of my favorite characters from the novel. That whole those passages when we realize that she was prevented from studying, because of her family situation,
Yeah.
and her animosity, her loving of her father, yet deep seated animosity towards him for denying her that opportunity that later on she finally gets. That really, really, like that got to my core, and not because of experience personally, but just that whole then the way he depicted it. So it's just wow, that's amazing, and it's an amazing story. So many elements of your book are amazing, but
Thank you.
what I'm trying to get at is that you write this full length novel, and you know, I have to say, like, so many impactful, poignant, emotional moments in that book, right? And I could go on all day about what it's about and what I thought, but I want to start with having you, in your own words, describe what your novel is about, if you don't mind, please.
Yo, I would love that. I would love that. I mean, I I have to put a disclaimer here that I'm really bad at summarizing my own work. Whenever somebody says, can you give me an elevator pitch? Oh man, come on. But I would love to talk about it in two ways. First of all, the genre, right? And the genre is science fantasy noir, which is quite unconventional because there are a lot of science fantasy books out there, but science fantasy noir is a kind of a very very rare beast. And I didn't even know it was science fantasy noir because if you look through the all the reviews for the Tower of Mud and Straw for the original novella, people always try to guess the genre. What is the genre? Is it Gaslamp? Well, yeah, it kind of Gaslamp, but not quite. Is it steampunk? Well, I mean, yeah, but no, and so on. So it kind of fits into a lot of boxes, but not completely. Like those puzzles, like kids' puzzles, where you try to put a thing into all different shaped holes, differently shaped holes, and nobody really. There were a lot of guesses, but nobody really pinpointed the genre until we went on submission with a novel. And then one of the editors who made us an offer said, he wrote me on Facebook and asked, how is the noir novel doing? And I was like, oh my God, this is noir. That is noir, because in noir you have exactly those dream states where you not quite know whether it's dream or it's reality. It's very dreamy. A lot of smoke going through in the background, and there are those internal monologues, huge internal monologues. And this is why, for example, they wanted Harrison Ford to put the voiceover narration into Blade Runner, not because people think it's to explain the story, but in reality it was to move it closer to the noir genre, which it is, Blade Runner, and morally gray protagonists and relationships which end badly and so on. So this is really really noir, and I was like, God, this is science fantasy noir. That is amazing. So I have no idea again how I arrived at that, but I guess it's what I like. I love Chinatown. I love Blade Runner. I love Casablanca, and I love fantasy, and I love science fiction. So just put it all into a melting pot, and this is what came out. So this is in terms of a genre. I always say, people, I'm sure you never wanted to read this, but here it is. I mean, it's interesting. In terms of a blurb of what happens, I will just read it because, like I said, am really bad at summarizing, and I just ramble on and on and on until somebody cuts me off. So I'll just read it. When Minister Shea Ashcroft refuses the Queen's brutal order to gas a rioting crowd, he is exiled to the borderlands with an impossible task: overseeing the construction of the largest defensive tower in history. Propped by volatile anti-gravity technology borrowed from a race of Drakiri refugees, the tower is as dangerous as it is monumental. As Cold War-esque tensions between countries escalate, Shay forms an unlikely alliance with a Drakiri woman who reminds him of someone he's lost. Drakiri hate and fear the tower. They say it mirrors one from their past, a structure that nearly led to their extinction by opening a gateway to a parallel reality. Fighting memories and hallucinations, Shay must make a choice. If he defies his orders, his future will be destroyed. If he doesn't, everyone may be. So this is that's the book.
And it's a fantastic synopsis. Um,
Thank you.
but and I do, and thank you, and I appreciate the inclusion of this subgenre that is part of, because I think for me that pulls on a key thread that when you think of noir, for me, when I think of noir, one of the biggest elements, and I love Blade Runner, Casablanca, all these movies you mentioned, in terms of the film aspect of noir. When I think of noir, especially the writing aspect, I think specifically of one thing. What I think of is anti-heroes. I think
Yeah,
about flawed heroes, and I think about heroes that when noir became more in vogue, prior to that, I think it was anathema to put a hero that wasn't good, pure,
absolutely.
straightforward,
Absolutely.
clear moral compass, But then, what became much more popular and trendy was these heroes that were kind of messy and messed up and had these ish, and I think, but those are the kind of stories I absolutely love. I ache for, right? And as you
Yeah.
know, I write myself as an author,
Yes.
and 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 I once I read the synopsis of your book, that was it. I knew it, because clearly this is going to be a hero with issues, right? This wasn't going to
Absolutely.
be your
Absolutely.
cutout. This wasn't going to be Aragorn. This wasn't going to be, So I I was like, yep, I know I'm gonna love this right away. And of course, I end up, but for so many more reasons than that, I end up loving it. Not just, but I think that's part of the hallmark of what makes your book amazing is Shay,
Thank you so much.
and
Yeah, thank you. That
and
warms my heart, really.
and he is a very complicated man. Um, he's a man who, I mean, what I love is by virtue of his position alone, because we all know that being a politician is not an easy job. And if you want to be a good one, one who accomplishes things for your constituents, but yet has to navigate through the very muddy waters of politics by nature, which are always going to be muddy, and maintaining power while maintaining popularity, pleasing your political masters, while keeping the people, at least convincing the people that you're doing something for them. It's a tough position, and we often denigrate politicians as being slimy, etc. And we all know that there's politicians they're honestly trying to do the right thing, but doing the right thing in the landscape in which they work is not an easy task. Now with Shay, and again, we're not trying to give away many spoilers here, but clearly a lot of this is outlined in the synopsis, etc. Um, you know, he has to make a choice. He's in a position to make a choice. He makes a choice, and as a result, there's since the background, of course, there's a riot, and he makes a choice, and
Yeah.
because of the choice he makes, he is politically ostracized. So, can you tell us a bit about how that inciting incident, and again, a bit more background? The riot is actually about the tower and the construction of this tower. So, how does this inciting incident and how he handles it shape his future in terms of his new assignment to essentially oversee the construction of this tower and ensure that it's a success?
It's basically the first bell for him saying that's not the right path which you're on, because on this path your decisions will have to lead to a lot of blood. If you continue with this government, if you continue under this government, this will lead to a lot of blood, and you will have blood in your hands. And there is actually a scene almost in the middle of the book which harkens back to the riot, where he sees a dog and a murdered man, and he smells the blood, and he thinks, okay, this is politics. This is decisions which end in people dying. And this is actually it's absolutely insane, because what happened here is um, once I got nominated for the Nebula, there was a great interest from Russian publishers, because they were, okay, this is a Russian guy. I mean, it's difficult to say whether I'm a Russian guy, because I'm 40 now, and I spent the first 20 years of my life in Russia and the second 20 years of my life in Austria. So I guess my identity, I mean, my cultural identity is still with Russia, of course, because all the TV series, all the books I read as a child, all the cultural context is there. But I feel much more like a citizen of the world now. And but there was a great interest from the Russian publishers, and the rights to the translation were bought by the biggest traditional publisher, Exmo. It's an absolute mastodon. Russian publishing market is very different from the international one. There are its own publishers, Exmo, Azbuka, and so on. Exmo is the biggest one. So they said, okay, we want to translate it. I said, fine, that is great. There was no news of the war, no congregation of tanks on the border. It was all in the future we didn't even think would be possible at all. So I said yes, and I sold them the rights. And then when the book came out, it came out 1 month before the war, the novella, the translation of the novella. Uh, and the first thing was a lot of people said they couldn't read it because they said, you know what? I switch on the TV, there's news. I can't listen to the news, so I switch off the TV. I take a fantasy book instead, and it's the same thing. It's written like 2 years before, but so many things were really anticipated that it's eerie. And the second thing that people said, they said, well, I mean, what kind of politician is this guy? He's soft. He said, why? I mean, he doesn't gas those people. Then he has this internal turmoil. Like that's not a politician. And I read that and I thought, my God, we are so used to the idea of our politicians, of our leaders being essentially psychopaths. So we accept that if there is a leader, then this leader will make decisions which will end in blood, and we kind of expect the leader not to have any kind of moral reservations about it. And we put those people in power ourselves. That was absolutely insane. I read the all the people who said that Shea is not strong enough, or there's too much reflection, self-reflection, and so on. Jesus, I thought, guys, don't you see the world you're living in? The world is this way because you think this way, because you think about your politicians this way. You expect them to be psychopaths. If you accept them to be this way, they will be this way, and you will elect those people into office, and the world will be like this. So Shea is an attempt to paint a politician with a conscience, and to remind people that politicians are still people, and if they're good people, I mean, conflicted, morally grayish, but still essentially good, they will have inner turmoil. They will have reservations about their decisions. There is no way they will just drive a military truck down the street and put an end to any riot and any uprising and any difference of opinion. Although this is also possible. Yeah.
And that is so well said, so articulate there. And Yaroslav, and I'm not trying to espouse any particular um, political position or but I mean, frankly, I agree with you. And fiction, a lot of people think it's funny what you talked about. I love how you said it, because fiction, in some ways, people seem to be of either one of two camps when it comes to fantasy in particular. That and there's nothing wrong with either one. Some people they want their fantasy to be somewhat, I guess the word I best word I can use is sanitized, in terms of controversy and political stances and the themes. They don't want anything to, and I mean I always say this, that we as a society are desensitized to certain things, but yet other things
Mhm.
that seem to be less serious, and on some levels we can read a fantasy novel with battle scenes where 10,000 people die, are eviscerated, beheaded, blown up, etc. But right about colonialism, racism, bigotry, think, ooh, I can't. It's a weird, again, a
Yeah,
weird contradiction, right? And the fact
absolutely.
that you said that people just couldn't buy into the realism of it. I mean, it's just shocking in a way if you really think about it, right? But again,
Exactly.
people are entitled to their opinions, and they're entitled to read what they want. and if they bounce off a book, then that's okay too, right? For whatever reasons,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
too close to home or too. But again, I do want to comment that yes, it did seem. I have to agree with a lot of your reasons. It was eerily prescient, the way that essentially the Russo-Ukrainian war, that you essentially predicted it, in your novel, and that when you look at a man like Shea, I mean, for all of his what I believe is the correct, humane decision of not ordering the open fire, this is still a man who he realizes that, and before he gets into the ifs and should I try and have this tower destroyed versus not, before he gets the assignment, he already has an impression about what this tower is or could be. I mean,
Yeah.
the nominal optical thing is that it's there to be a defense tower and destroy airships. However, really and truly, it is the vanity project of the
Absolutely.
queen of the queen.
Absolutely.
It is her effort at immortality, to cement her legacy, to not become irrelevant as just a footnote in history. And he knows this. He's a very intelligent man, but he also knows that if he fails, what the consequences could be,
Yeah.
because he's already on the political outs now. So, if he fails at this,
There's nothing for him.
yeah.
Exactly.
So that you putting him in that situation was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, masterclass, and setting up what his choices are. So now you've already given us this, you've already set the stage that this man is a man who is capable of making tough choices. But what happens with the tower is a tough choice on a completely different level, right? It's on a completely different level, even than how serious the choice he had about ordering the open fire or not. So, and this is also a man who is dealing with trauma and grief, heavy duty trauma and grief. And I want to quickly talk about that. You made a very interesting stylistic choice to have the two most important people in his life would have the same name.
Yeah.
And without giving away spoilers, when I think about everything surrounding both those things, it's just so tragic. Now, I want to specifically ask you about the name thing, because I felt this is something, you read novels and you always say, and I have the privilege of talking to you, but you all say, man, I wish I could ask the author this, why he made that choice, right? Why did you choose that name for both of those characters? Can I ask that? Or if you're able to tell us.
Of course. Definitely. It's a very, very conscious choice. And this is something I've been thinking about for a long time before writing the book, because there is this phenomenon that a lot of men, when they divorce, after some time they marry women who resemble their ex-wives. In some cases, even physically. Like, I have a friend who was who divorced, and then he married the woman she's a brunette, and his ex-wife was a blonde, but they look like mirror images of one another. And this goes way beyond the appearance, the physical appearance. I think there is this idea that we're tied to our past, we're tied to our memories, and in our future relationships, we look for the things that we've lost. We look for the things that we found in some other people, then those people went away or the relationship didn't work out, but there was something true, and we're still looking for the same true spark in other people. And having them have the same name was effectively this, just getting this metaphor to the surface, that in all of our relationships we're looking for some things we've lost, or rather we found at some point, and then we kind of let go of something true. And this goes from relationship to relationship to relationship.
Wow. And again, I couldn't be sure, and I need to hear it from the source himself, but thank you for answering that. That's something that has been percolating in my head since I read the book. And you read a book like yours and it cites all these different thought processes and questions in such a good way. And I was so curious, and that's what I thought potentially could be the answer. But thank you for answering. And it's part of what makes the book so fascinating, right? And the themes you deal with, and the intense character studies. I'm a character driven reader. Definitely, this is a character driven book. In all the right ways. And I, when we think about, we touched upon the same names, Lena, for these characters. Ashcroft is someone who, in a way, he is. There's so many reasons why the technology surrounding the Drakiri,
Yeah.
and his, we know he becomes involved with him at a certain level. That why he would find that to be a big problem. Um, but yet, Brielle, who avails herself of the Drakiri and their technologies because they have these advanced capabilities, we also see the potential for for the positivity, right?
Of course.
For
Of
the
course.
so that again is another, you put so many amazing dichotomies and contradictions in your book. So can you discuss, and the Drakiri themselves, um, they are very much analogous to a group of people. I mean, pick your cultural ethnic group that are very much on the outside and somewhat mistrusted because of ethnically culturally who they are, and yet people covet. They're very powerful. Can you talk a little bit about the Drakiri, what they represent, and how, in terms of Ashcroft, do I think there was a level of reluctance with him, of course, as I noted, becoming involved, but of course he ends up being intimately involved because of his relationship. Can you talk a bit about them and that aspect of
Sure.
your work?
Sure. Absolutely. The Drakiri, basically, I don't want to spoil much much of the second part of the book, but they're very, they resemble the baseline humans. Let's put it this way, of the book, really a lot. So the differences in physical appearance and in physical capabilities are superficial, and yet they're still ostracized as a group. And this is something that I personally, I really, my heart bleeds, because we have those mechanisms from way back, from way back when we were still in Africa, where we, as a species, we had to have this recognition. Okay, this is my group, and this is another group, so they can steal our food, so we have to fight them, we have to unite, we have to keep closer. And we don't need this stuff anymore. We don't need this stuff, because we are now an international society. We have spread all across the globe. We don't have any predators, natural predators, apart from ourselves, endangering our existence. So we don't need this stuff, and still it bleeds into so many things. This is just, I mean, this is horrible, and I have no idea how to come to terms with this for us as a species, really, because this so Drakiri, again, this is a group which looks so much like the basic humans, and still they are ostracized. Uh, so this is that for me was one of the main points. Um, and Shay gets involved, and then finally we find out in the end why they look so much the same, right? Again, I don't want to spoil to spoil anything. So this is that's a common, that's one of the social commentaries which I wanted to put into the novel. And like I said, I mean, we did great job in coming together as a species, but still not enough, not enough. And what I pray about every day is that we have enough time to come together, really, before we blow ourselves up, because this is also unfortunately a possibility. Like I totally believed in 2022 that the world would end and there'll be a nuclear apocalypse and so on. So I really pray we have enough time to continue coming together, and that we will just live as one at some point in the bright future. I hope my kiddo gets to experience that, but one can only hope.
I do too, but I definitely saw that aspect somewhat of the nihilism in the
Mhm.
book, but at the same time, the optimism, balance with the optimism, that glimmer of hope that was right through. But I have to highlight, and again, your prose was absolutely beautiful. It was fantastic. It spoke to me. It sang to me, and I kept taking notes and writing down passages that I loved. And as you can see from my review, I quoted so many parts of your book. But I would like your commentary based on what we just talked about specifically on that one line, the line that will never leave me. Hope is a stupid thing. Were it rational, it would go broke.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is that's the nihilism, and it's because you said the word nihilism, and this is that's a exactly the, the right word for it. It's nihilism and also fatalism, and this comes from my Russian cultural cultural background, unfortunately. No, the problem is, uh, once the war started, there were a lot of Russian writers were branded imperialist. One of them was Leo Tolstoy. And Leo Tolstoy, he's as anti-imperialist as it gets, possibly, because if you read War and Peace, basically he deconstructs the very notion of a leader, of a military leader, of a political leader, and says it doesn't matter. It all doesn't matter. Once the battle starts, the generals don't matter, the leaders don't matter. It just progresses according to its own rules, and history marches on without waiting for anyone, be it Napoleon or Alexander or anyone. And there is a scene in War and Peace where Balkonsky, one of the primary characters, Napoleon, he's Russian, but Napoleon is his hero. So he dreams to meet him on the battlefield, and he does. He does. There is a big battle. He lies wounded. He clutches the banner, the military banner, and then Napoleon comes up to him and says, "Oh, that's a beautiful death." He doesn't die, by the way, at this point, but Napoleon says this is a beautiful death. And Balkonsky, the hero, is looking at the sky, and because he's lying down, right, and he thinks, okay, this is eternal, unending, and I've never noticed it this way. And Napoleon is just so tiny compared to that. He's nothing. And this idea, which is first voiced when Balkonsky is lying down on the battlefield, it just goes like a scarlet thread through the entire book. So it's actually anarchist in a way. I don't know how it got published in the Imperial Russia, but it's very anarchist. But the what it does have, and what is a great fault of Russian literature, I think, Russian classical literature, is fatalism, extreme fatalism, because this whole idea also that the battle progresses according to its own rules, the history marches on, we can't change anything. That's fatalism, right? And there are a lot of other writers, even the writers who wrote slightly lighter literature, like Turgenev, they still were very, very fatalist. And I think this is one of the reasons why the Russian political situation right now is what it is. Because in the US, there's a feeling, okay, we can change things. We need to shake the status quo every now and then. We need to. I mean, sometimes it just ends like it ended right now. Sometimes it ends, another way. But uh, there's a feeling that you can change things. You have a vote, you have a voice. But Russians, we are our people, our my compatriots or former compatriots. We're much more fatalistic, and there's this idea, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, we can go to the elections, but man, come on, it will either be the same or it'll get worse. Ah, come on, and so on. And this fatalism has been um, promoted by the classical literature for a long time, unfortunately. And there's a lot of fatalism and a lot of nihilism in the Sleeping Worlds too. That's why a lot of people said this is very Russian, because they were picking up on this thread. I try sometimes to write something more hopeful, but it's difficult to get too far, to wander too far away from one's own roots.
No, I totally understand, and I guess that's also leading me to another question because, like you, of course, have read War and Peace, one of the greatest, probably one of the greatest novels ever published. I mean, there's an argument for maybe, I think most people would argue, in the top 25 books ever written. It typically figures in that conversation, and of course, having read War and Peace, you know that three princes figure prominently in that work.
Yes.
You have a prince in your work, and there's a few modern day leaders that perhaps, without getting too political, we could say that he could be a composite of. I'm just wondering, considering War and Peace, was one of the princes in War and Peace part of the inspiration for your prince?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. He has some of Napoleon, some of the Napoleon in
Yeah,
him, and on the surface, he also, his story is kind of a mirror of the story of Crown Prince
yeah,
Rudolph
yes,
of
yes,
Austria,
yes, yes,
because there was this thing
yes,
called the mailing incident,
yeah,
and where Crown Prince Rudolph, he shot himself in the head together with his concubine. And here you have a dark mirror version of
yeah,
this incident. So and also this white red uniform is very characteristic of the late Austrian monarchy. So a lot of it is late Austrian. But of course, there's one figure which inspired the Crown Prince the most, and this is the again, tied to the current, without without revealing too much, tied to the current Russian reality. Uh, you know, oh, that is so amazing. Like with a novella, for example, this is so amazing because it's really eerie because again, it was written in the beginning of 2020. There was absolutely no even conception that a war could happen. If you had told anybody at that point in time that a war between Russia and Ukraine would break out, that Russia would invade Ukraine, people said, "Are you nuts? This is conspiracy theorism. This is like nobody could ever believe that this would happen." And yet there's this village where they ride to, which I think we talked about before, where they pursue Patrick to. This village is called Poltava, and Poltava is a great city and a region in Ukraine, came within an inch of being invaded by Putin's forces. So there's a lot of current Russian reality. Let's say in the Crown Prince, and there's also the commentary on the how we empower our leaders, right? So where near the end Shem uses that evil is not in the Crown Prince. Evil is in every yes and every nod and every yes sir, we'll do it, that we do as people. So it's an amalgamation, and also the language, the Duman language, is a very deliberate cross between Russian and German. These are the two former empires, the Austrian Empire and the Russian Empire, which I know a lot about because I lived in both countries for a long time. So in the language, the nouns are from Russian and the verbs are from German. So it's kind of an amalgamation, and Shea has to navigate this landscape because he doesn't speak the language, because he was a minister of internal affairs, not a secretary of state. So he has to learn the language or find someone to speak on his behalf. But again, I don't want to get into too many spoilers for the second part of the book.
It's funny for me, my generation, as you can see, I'm a graybeard. My mother, who's now my beautiful mother, I hope you're watching this point somewhere. Mom, love you very much. My mother's 89, and I was raised on my introduction as a child to Austria. The first thing, and it was funny when I learned that you lived in Austria. When I met you, we met at WorldCon. We got to talking about your background, and I've never been to Austria, of course, but my vision of Austria, what I first envisioned to be, of course, it's very different now. you're talking about two generations. Really, was through a movie that I watched about probably in my life literally 15 times, The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
So, and my when I read your book and you talked about the uniforms, the white, the red, and I could envision the Apoleski vision. And now when you think about the Von Trapps, I was thinking about when Austria's getting annexed by the Germans and they're leaving, like the whole, like it just brought me back
Yeah.
years to and like I said, I've literally watched The Sound of Music 15 times at least. My mother loved that. She would put
It's a
that,
beautiful movie.
yeah, beautiful movie, but we'd watch that 3 times a year, right? And I think what struck me as well about as a child watching Sound of Music, that was my first introduction to the entire concept of Nazi Germany,
Mhm.
right? That was my
Yeah.
introduction to it through this iconic. Again, you talk about top films of all time.
Yeah.
Most lists would include The Sound of Music top 25, top 50, whatever you'd like to say, and I feel like so many things about your book were iconic and brought me, the images were iconic and yes, inspired by real life things and not all of them pleasant, but of course very very poignant and very important things. And yeah, but the prince was one of my favorite characters. Obviously
Thank
not,
you.
obviously not a good guy, but but you know,
But he's very intelligent. He's very
yes,
intelligent.
extremely. And you talk about politics, and again, I'm not trying to turn this into a political discussion, but you talk about politicians, and you talk about politicians that try to convince their followers that the end always justifies the means, and that they have a greater purpose, and that there is a greater good. That despite any atrocities committed, that this is for something bigger. And I want to quickly talk about the prince and his ability to seduce people to his way of thinking, his ability to change the narrative, the historical narrative, his ability, to at first certainly until his ruthlessness must show itself to
Right.
convince people that he's benevolent and benign and what was it like to write that character? I think it was so exceptionally well done. And how do you feel when you write characters like that? Do you enjoy writing them?
Oh yes, of course, of course. I think everybody enjoys writing a good villain. And I also think um, that like just an aside, before I started writing professionally, I played classical guitar a lot, and I had a beautiful teacher, Kevin Gallagher from New York. We did Skype lessons, and in guitar playing, I don't know if you play, but you have the hands of a musician. PL. I don't know if you play an instrument, but a beautiful
Piano,
hand.
piano, a long time ago, but not anymore. When I was a
You
child,
see,
but not anymore.
you see, that's you can see it. You can see it in the hands. And the thing is, when you play piano or when you play guitar, when you play a polyphonic instrument, there's a thing called voice leading, right? When you essentially you play, especially in guitar, you play a sequence of chords, which are discrete sequence of chords, but there are voices going through the sequence, right through it. The bass voice, the top voice, the middle voices. And although here is one chord you play and then change to another one and then to another one in discrete motions, you have to make it sound like there's a voices which are free flowing, just flowing through the piece. And this is voice leading. And I sat down with my teacher and said, Kevin, I don't know, man. How do I do that? How do I do proper voice leading? He said, Yari, look, there's absolutely no secret to it. There's no skill. There's nothing you should practice. Like, oh man, come on. So what is it? What's the secret? I said, it's very simple. When you play, you listen to yourself, and if you hear those voices clearly yourself, then the audience will hear it. So just listen to what you play and make sure you hear the voices. And that was cathartic to me. And this, I think, holds true of so much we do in arts and in creative endeavors. So if you're writing a character, and because the crown prince is supposed to like to sway Shay to his side at the very beginning, and you're supposed to supposed to feel sympathy toward him, until he shows his true face. So if you don't enjoy writing the character, if you don't have a blast writing a character, then the readers won't have a blast reading about them, and they won't have a disconnection, which you can then uh, topple and destroy, and by showing the true face of the character. So I had a blast writing Crown Prince.
And he was so extremely just a what a touch with writing that character. And again, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but you nailed it in that. At first, I mean, he's meant to be a charismatic, magnetic character that until he does show his true colors, you do feel okay, this guy, he's perhaps unorthodox, some unorthodox views. However, he's someone who perhaps has some of the right ideals in mind, and you're seduced by until you realize, and I think you just did a fantastic job with that character and all your characters. But that's the kind of character because that character, those kind of characters definitely show off a writer's skill
Thank you.
in how well they write, and I think that's a testament to your writing that you wrote him so well. And me, I love my my flawed villains. The flawed
Great,
good guys.
amazing,
Great.
You write amazing villains, Bill. You write
Thank
absolutely
you.
beautiful, amazing villains. And Shay, by the way, Shay is in the first part of the book, in the novella. If you recall, there are some people saying the Crown Prince is a
Yeah.
megalomaniac, and he
Yeah.
will destroy the world. No, come on, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
that is all conspiracies, and come on, we're all that's like one Europe. Well, it's not Europe, it's parallel world, but nothing will happen. Come on. So Shay is actually in the beginning. He's in the camp of people saying it's all good. Is the Crown Prince is he's an okay guy, and there is a because he's not there in the first part of the novel, and the way to put him in there was this scene where they burn an effigy of him, a
Yes.
huge effigy of him, and in this scene, Shay sides with the Crown Prince, who is not present, and then only after he actually gets to Duma and gets to experience Crown Prince firsthand does his opinion of the man change.
and I loved, like I said, the political machinations were written first rate fashion. I love me some complex political drama and scheming and maneuvering and backstabbing, and there's a lot of betrayals, and you're not sure who's on whose side, and people switch sides, switch allegiances. I think, and in all of that, and again, the backdrop, it very much felt, and you basically referred to it, that you have Shay banished to this corner of the empire on the border of this other country with which
Yeah.
there's a Cold War type conflict,
Right.
and so much is hinging on this tower, and I think even before the more, shall we say, cosmic horror elements are introduced, um, you get the sense that this cannot be good, right? You have this massive tower that has already been the cause of death and destruction, even just by its construction. And you have this queen who is clearly, it's a very myopic, one-sided, like I said, trying to cement her legacy. She doesn't care one way or another as long as it's built.
Yep.
That gets, and then you have the prince's, involvement. You have Brielle and trying desperately to, this is someone who finally she got the opportunity to prove herself. She's reached this high position, and now she
Yep.
wants to succeed for her own reasons. You have Shay, who I mean, you have everyone's got an interest in the tower one way or another, either to see it destroyed or to see it go forward, and the tension you built up is just unreal. It's palpable. You can feel, something's got to give, right?
Yeah.
Something's got to give. You have all these competing interests and all these something has to give, and and it's like I said, it's masterfully done. Do you feel that with everything that happened and with how the novel ended, even with the resolution, is there possibility for more books about this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have another book. I have another completely outlined because I think the thing here is, uh, of course, I mean, one thing missing from another book would be that this massive tower, which is like I said, it's a powerful symbol. It's a palpable focus
Yes.
of tension, and I just got lucky with the metaphor, you know. But I've outlined the next book, and the thing for me is I love the sequels, which because very often you get a sequel like a new threat, like an even bigger threat. Like we had a race of I don't know extraterrestrials, and then this race was defeated, and then we have a race of their masters or whatever, you know. So kind of people keep amping up the threat, but I'm really interested in stories where the world has enough elements to it that if you give it a chance to breathe for 10 years without your own involvement and then pick it up like after 10 years, then a lot of interesting things might happen, right? And one of the entry points into I'm not wouldn't even call it a sequel into another book would be that there are Drakiri in the world, right? And they uh, might get wind of what happened with at the end of the novel. So and they might get wind of what really happened back in history. So how would they react? Not everybody would react like Kara, right? Some people would react in a different way, and knowing that of the possibilities which open up at the end of the book, how would people react? And so this is where it would pick up, but the sequel would definitely be, or the second book would definitely be from the point of view of Brielle. So unfortunately, I find it very difficult to talk about it without spoiling, completely spoiling the end of the book, completely spoiling everything. It's also uh, it's also interesting, very interesting how because the ending is ambiguous, right? The ending, you don't know, you don't really know what will happen to Shay. He returns to he returns, but you never know what will happen to him. So of course, another book removes this ambiguity, which is a shame because I love me some ambiguous ending. I love it. But whether the next book will come out or not, it remains to be seen because we need to see how good this current book does. If the current book does well in sales, then definitely, if not, maybe a couple of other novels have to happen in between. But I do have a very very good story for another book.
Ooh, that makes me very happy. I'm very excited. I cannot wait to read more from you again. This
Thank you.
was fabulous, very deserving. The original being nominated for a Nebula, in my opinion. Again, one of my top books of the year. I, I'm hoping that you do me the honor of coming back on the show in the future, especially after you have something
Love
else
that.
either en route to being published or being published so that we can chat about that as well. Um,
My God, Peel, I would love nothing better. I would come back in an instant. Just tell me
Thank you
when
so
and where.
much. I'm very honored. Yes, and I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but I'm not going to keep you here all day, and your time is valuable, and you've been so generous with it. I would like to give you the opportunity to, you know, as we're winding down here, provide, where people can find you on social media, where they can buy your books. I will put, I neglect to put the Amazon buy link in the description, but everything else is there. Your Goodreads, your social media links. However, I'd like you to expand on that and let people know where to find you, where they can get copies of your books, where you like to lurk on social media, and things like that. If you don't mind providing that for the audience.
I would love to. Should I put it in the chat or should I just I
If you
think
just
that
yeah, you can
yeah,
you can do both if you'd like. Again, I will have buy links, but yes,
yeah.
yes. But I'd like
I
to
mean
like to hear from you. I'm sure too.
I mean I'm a Blue Sky and I'm Twitter. A lot of writers migrated from Twitter to Blue Sky. Though I feel that what happened, a lot of writers went to Blue Sky, but a lot of bloggers, reviewers, and podcasters remain on Twitter. So I still maintain presence on both platforms, and I think in terms of for the writers and for the reviewers, for the bloggers, it's the best platform because you can write those short, concise snippets of text, and this is text oriented, prose oriented. So this remains the best platform for us. I'm also on Instagram. I am on somewhat less on Mastodon. I am on somewhat less, but still present in Facebook. And I would love to chat with everybody a bit more on all those platforms. And regarding the book, uh, thank you so much for putting the Amazon link, PL. And another thing I wanted to say here is the book is traditionally published, so it's available in the bookstores, or the bookstore can order it in just in a couple of days. And even though the book industry is not struggling as such, still a lot of local bookstores are struggling. And my plea to people would be just if you can wait a couple of days as opposed to Amazon, just go to your local bookstore and either buy the book there or order it there, because this really helps those places to thrive and to survive. And I listened to a podcast some time ago, Publishing Rodeo, where one of the booksellers came on the podcast and said, sometimes people come to us and they say, "Do you have this book stocked?" And we say, "No, but we can order it for you." I said, "Oh, no, 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 thank you. I'll just buy on Amazon. Don't worry." As if they're doing the bookseller a favor. But you're not doing us a favor. Would love it. Would love for you to buy it from us, and we can order it really on a short notice. We can have it delivered to the store in a day or two. Just buy it from us. So my plea to people is, do support your local bookstores. If you're interested in Sleeping Worlds of No Memory and you have a local bookstore next to you, just go there, see if it's there, if it's in stock. If it's not, they can order it for you within a couple of days. Uh, or buy it on Amazon too. That'd be great. I would be very thankful. And yeah, I'm very active on social media, so look forward to chatting with everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah. Pick up Sleeping Worlds. I have no memory. This book, again, was one of my top books of the year. Once more, you can see it as part of the post I put for a top books trad and indie of 2024 on Before We Go blog. The review for Yaroslav's book is also on Goodreads under the book itself. So you
And
can
I'm
read it.
shamelessly using it in all my promotional efforts.
Oh, you're right. I'm so honored. I mean, a lot of people, much more important than me, have written great things about your book. So, but I'm honored that you continue to, highlight my review of your work, and it's a privilege to read it. Um, and once again, I have to thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to have you back and chat in the future. We're always going to keep talking, regardless, outside of just this form. Um,
Absolutely.
Once again, thank you to everyone who watched the live and or will watch this later. You are what makes this type of long form content fabulous. In terms of me, P.L. Stewart, this is the John Kingdom Saga 7847 on YouTube. In terms of the books, the best place is www.plstewart.com. That is my website. That's where you can find out more about the John Kingdom Saga. 4 books currently published in the series. The 5th one, A Pack of Wolves, is coming in the spring of 2025. So again, my commitment is a book a year, and I'm on track. And God willing, I will finish the series by 2027 with a book published every year. In
Oh my
terms,
God.
yeah,
That is. I didn't know it will be finished. It will be finished in 2027. Can you pre-order the Pack of Wolves now?
not yet, but soon. So I'll be putting something on socials on that. But yes, I thank you so much for your interest in my series, and thank
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot coming from an author I respect when they in turn like your work. So that means a lot.
Thank you.
Um, um, for socials, like Yaroslav, X/Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Blue Sky. I'm on all of them. Typically, the handle is at Peel Sturt Writes for all of those. You can also, I'm an assistant editor with Before We Go blog. You can see my reviews not only Goodreads, but on Before We Go blog. Before We Go blog, a wonderful blog site led by the incredible Beth Tabler and all of my colleagues at Before We Go blog, wonderful bloggers, a lot of them authors themselves. It's just a great thing to be a part of. So if you'd like to see my review of Yaroslav's book, you can not only see it on Goodreads, but you can also see it on Before We Go blog. Just put his name in the search bar and it will come up. I anticipate I'm going to be writing a lot of reviews, glowing reviews of Yaroslav's work in the future. So again, when I do, I'll be posting them on socials everywhere. I can't wait to read the next thing from him. Again, he's automatically vaulted to be one of my must-buy authors. So it's been such a treat to have him here today. Yaroslav, again, thank you so much for coming. And again, thank you for the honor of coming back in the future. And I'm sure we'll be chatting. For those of you, go out and, if you want to read something that was based on a Nebula nominated caliber book, read Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory by Yaroslav Barsukov. It is a great book.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Everyone who joined us today, thank you so much. We'll